Okay, guys, I want to welcome everybody on Thursday night, another episode of Conversations with Commodores, and I've got one of the hardest hitting defensive players from the 90s with us on the other line in the Franklin area, excuse me. Want to welcome my buddy Roc Batten. How you doing, Roc?
Doing great, Bernard. Appreciate you having me on. And, I'm excited. You're doing a lot of great things with the former Vandy players. And it's just exciting to be on and see a lot of great guys and bring back a bunch of memories, even some guys that I don't know. So I appreciate all you're doing to kind of bring us all together. I really do.
Well, it's absolutely my pleasure. And as you and I were talking beforehand, you and I played different time periods, different coaches, have a few common friends, but not teammates who were at the same time. And it's been fun getting to know guys who I didn't get to play with and may not have seen at ball games. And you, OJ Fleming, Alfonso Harvey, bunch of you guys. We got a bunch of guys coming through. Kenneth Christian.
Yeah.
Let's see. Ken and Kathy Hammond.
Mm-hmm.
OJ says, "What's up? Touch the wall." You're going to have to tell that story.
Oh, that's taking it back when he said that one. Now that's taking it back right there.
Well, I suspect we're going to get a whole bunch of good folks watching us and some good comments. But before we dive into that part, Roc, I want you to take us. Oh, let's see. We got, and forgive me, guys, if I mispronounce names. Johnny Montoya is on there.
Johnny Montoya, yes.
So, Roc, take us, before we talk about what's going on with you now, and before we talk about the good old days at McGugin, take us back to some childhood time. Where'd you grow up? Sports did you play? And how did Vanderbilt get on your radar before you ultimately came to the Commodores?
Yeah, I'm originally from Detroit, Michigan, born and raised. The son of one of four, two older brothers and a younger sister, and a family of coaches. My mom and dad were coaches. My mom and dad were track coaches, and my dad was a cross country coach, and my dad was a football coach as well. Both my older brothers played. One of my brothers played at Purdue. Another brother played at Northwood. Actually, my younger sister was really the star. She was an All-American at Florida State as a track athlete. And so all of us, she's the only one who brought some real hardware home at the end of the day.
That's a serious program, too.
Yeah, she was an All-American there, and she's now the head track coach at Western Michigan University. So,
very good.
So track athletic family, but was fortunate to be recruited by several schools, but Coach Carl Bull Reese was the guy who recruited me with John Shute, actually, who was the GA at the time, in the DiNardo era. They were the main two guys recruiting me, and it's the same thing. Why when I was coaching there, why I went to Vanderbilt was the opportunity to play in the best conference in the country, get an amazing education. I'm a Detroit guy, city guy, being a city, all these great things in the network. So that's, an opportunity for me at the time. I was a quarterback who also played defensive back, but I went to college to be a quarterback at the time. And Vanderbilt was one of the, schools who gave me that opportunity in the DiNardo era. And so that's how I ended up at Vanderbilt and met my wife there. So three kids later, rather. It's been a blessing in a lot of ways.
Awesome. By chance, you being a Detroit guy, two of my teammates were from Michigan. Clarence Civilian, a wide receiver, who I think may have been from Flint. I could have that wrong.
Yes.
And then big lineman, Big Jim C, was from Detroit area. So I didn't know if you knew those guys. They were my time.
I know Clarence well. He's my frat brother, and I've talked to him several times. My time at Vanderbilt as a player. Even as I was coaching, great receiver, but yes, from the Flint area. The other guy who was one of my high school teammates, and I think he's on here. I don't know if he's on today, logged on, but Glenn Young played defensive end, was a start on one of the great, which I argue probably still one of the greatest defenses in Vandy history, the 97 defense.
Oh, we're going to get there.
He was on that team, but he was my teammate, and he came to Vanderbilt the year before me and was a big influence for me coming to Vanderbilt as well when you have a teammate
Well,
as I was getting recruited. So big
speaking
shout
of
out.
that 97 team, speaking of that 97 defense, one of the stalwarts, I don't know where in the country he is tonight, but I'm glad he's on with us, is Carlton Hall is with us, and he was my guest last week.
That's my
Will
guy.
Jacobs said he's proud of you. Gene Wyndham is with us. And let's see, Mr. Bradford is with us. So thank you, guys. And I do apologize. I'm going to call you Ant. So sorry, guys. I hadn't had the pleasure of meeting you yet, but I appreciate you guys being with us. But Rock, talk to us a little bit about you coming to Nashville for the first time, seeing the campus, meeting some of the guys, the coaches. What was it that really stuck out that said, this is the place for me? I got other places I can consider.
Right.
This is where I'm coming. What was it that really brought it home for you?
Well, really, when I came to campus, of course, Glenn being a big influence who was already there, and his experience at Vanderbilt, and he had dealt with some injuries a little, but you felt the brotherhood there when I came on my visit, and in terms of the players being connected, and at that time, I felt like there was a movement there to be, not just the bottom basement, but a great program. In terms of the football program, the classes before me, Carlton's class was, this is before the rivals, but they were ranked in the top 20 in terms of recruiting. That class was, I mean, as you look at all the guys who went to the NFL in that class, they were ranked pretty high. And the class before them had some guys that were pretty high ranked. And then my class came in the 94 class with OJ, guys like OJ Fleming and Corey Chavez and Marcus Williams and Damian Allen. We had Will Jacobs. I mean, all these guys. We had a really good group of football players in that group that were ranked as not as high as Carlton's group, but I just felt like it was a movement that was going in the right direction in the brotherhood. And obviously, the easy part was the school in terms of what it offered as an academic institution. But it was fun, the coaching staff with Carl Reese and Ron Case. I mean, that was a fun group that was there as coaches and well established too, that were recruiting us.
Very good. Well, you keep mentioning brotherhood. You keep mentioning your fraternity brothers. And here, this is completely independent of football. Did you participate in any of the step shows back in the day?
I did. I participated.
You had no idea I was going to ask about a step show, now did you?
That was good. Yeah. No, I have my share of step shows.
Where was your favorite venue? Where was your favorite place?
Oh gosh. Maybe in our probate show when my line we were introduced to the campus, we were like in the middle of the quad, and it was just a lot of fun. I mean, it was just the great thing is there was a lot of football players. I'm a member of Kappa Alpha Psi Fraternity Incorporated, and Derek Gregg being who's an athletic director, and Robert Davis and Corey Harris and Kenny Simon. I mean, there's so many guys that I can name that are members of my fraternity that helped me along my way. So, but yeah, participate in several step shows in my time.
I can assure you, back in the day, some of my teammates who you just mentioned, I went to some of their shows and had so much fun watching those guys do their thing.
Yes, it was a lot of fun. All
right. Oh, Carlton says the first to use probate on the show.
Yeah, I'm the first. But I'm sure Corey Harris, or when you get some of those other guys, they may have some more stories than I do. Trust me.
Don't worry, we're gonna get to those in the upcoming weeks. Corey's gonna be a future guest this month. But let's take it to your first fall practice.
Yeah.
Was it at Bell Buckle or was it on campus?
It was at Bell Buckle. I remember them.
Now, was it the pleasure cruise that everyone else is talking about that they just so thoroughly enjoyed?
Oh yes, it was. It was the pleasure cruise. They drop you off and you gotta run it in and introduce the Vandy football very quickly.
Well, I want you to talk about, you grew up in Detroit, up in the north. You don't have the humidity we have down in the south. How did that hit you?
It hit me like a ton of bricks. It was I was not used to that at all in terms of I developed allergies really quickly, probably like most people who are not from this area. But it was different. I mean, it was the air was thick and strong, and of course during fall camp it was hot, and all you had at Belt Buckle was a bunch of dogs running around while you're staying in those dorms. And the part that was amazing to me is that what DiNardo did is moved the entire athletic department to Belt Buckle. I mean, his support staff, weight room, I mean, every bit of it. It was impressive when you think about it as you get older. But at the same time, it was tough. It made you tough. It made you compete, made you fight, made you stay focused.
There wasn't anything else to do out there, I understand. See, that was all, we didn't have any of that. We were on campus for all of our pre-season camp. And frankly, from everybody who I've talked to, from Luke Wyatt to all these other players, Carlton included, who went out there, everybody hated it. They knew why they were there, and they knew the purpose of it, and to get through it was as much mental as it was physical. Did you agree with that?
No question. It was very mental. And DiNardo and his staff made sure it was mental just as well. I mean, like in terms of how it was going to prepare you for the season. Yes, every player that I know that went through Belt Buckle hated it. No one loved Belt Buckle, no parts of Belt Buckle. You were totally cut off from the entire world, and it was nothing but Vandy football 24/7. And it was intense.
We got some comments rolling through here. I want to welcome Billy Smith, Everett Robinson, and Tyler is saying you're the greatest option quarterback in the history of Detroit.
Oh, gosh.
There's got to be a story in there somewhere.
No, man, I was, I came in an era where DiNardo was trying to move away from the eye bone into more of an option spread kind of offense. And that's what I ran in high school. We were kind of I formation, a little bit of option, but threw the ball a lot in high school. And that's what he was trying to do. So I thought it fit well. And we're in Belt Buckle. We were still running the option. I remember one of the first pieces of equipment they gave me, besides rib cages, there was this chest protector that they put in between my shoulder pads. And it was so as I was taking hits from, guys like Sean Stuckey and these defensive ends and Carlton Hall and all these guys, and that, they're going to put their face right in my chest and it would absorb the blow.
That's
so
right.
I didn't know what that
sternum.
Yeah.
Protect that sternum right there. That's right. Well, talk to us about that transition from you coming in as a QB, but ultimately you made your mark on the defensive side.
Yeah, due to DiNardo era, that first year I stayed at quarterback that entire year. In camp, I was battling some guys, trying to make my way, trying to find my way as a quarterback, and ultimately was redshirted. Got in the doghouse a little bit with DiNardo. Never could figure out why. He told me later when I was a coach, as I called him, because I always like, what did I do, And his words to me, which I can, at the time I did. He said, I knew I was going to redshirt you. I knew you were a kid from Detroit, tough kid, and I felt like we were going to redshirt. I just want to see you endure some adversity. And I said, Coach, I struggled. I almost thought about leaving at one point. I struggled mentally. It just mentally got to me. I mean, a lot of guys who played with me knew about the struggle I had that freshman year, being a quarterback, and just DiNardo. He was tough. He was a tough coach to play for. But ultimately, DiNardo leaves and goes on to LSU, and Rod Dowhower comes in. And I remember my first meeting with Rod Dowhower. He said to me, Batten, you're a quarterback. I know you played defensive back. We're going to go to a pro-style offense. He said to me, you have to be just as good as Doug Flutie. This was his words, because I'm only 5'9". Be good as Doug Flutie to play quarterback in his offense. So they gave me a week at quarterback. Obviously, I was not as good as Doug Flutie, who was a Heisman winner. And at that point, I just wanted to play. I just wanted to get on the field. And I remember my first day moving to defensive back and being over there with Rosie Noble and Corey Chavis, and those guys helped me along. And I got after a couple receivers that first day. But it was a great transition for me. I knew eventually I could always end up there, and played it in high school. And loved every bit of it.
Roc, I want to welcome a DB from my time period who could hit you as hard as anybody, Steve Law from Athens, Georgia. Hey, Steve, good to see you, Slaw Dog. And Coach Gary Shepard says good evening, and to tell Roc I said hello. So thank you guys for tuning in. So you go from slinging it to now trying to catch it and returning it.
Yeah.
Who are some of those wide receivers you're trying to keep up with that first fall when you realize you now got to cover them instead of throwing to them?
Gabe Banks and Kenny Simons were two of the really good ones. I mean, Kenny was a phenomenal athlete, man. He played quarterback, but at receiver, he was physical and tough like a DB, but can get open, had great hands, great feet. We had another guy, Dwayne Todd, Robert Simmons, but Kenny was I thought was one of he was really special to me, man, and could do a lot and be physical when he catches the ball as well. So it was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun making that transition. And I was not the fastest guy, but I was a physical guy, and understood angles and understood the game and understood football. But I mean, Rosie Nova, I got to give him a lot of credit. I mean, he and Corey, but I played safety. So Rosie at the time was already a safety. And he took me on his wing in terms of just help. And he was in my class, helped me understand the playbook and get me on par and getting up to speed, because those guys were already a week into spring ball and we already had a lot of installation in, so I was behind. And so he helped me a ton.
So that's your first spring. That's your freshman spring. So coming into the fall, you're going to be playing DB. So take us into that fall. And when did you get your first playing time? And what was in your mindset when you hit the field for the first time?
The fall camp, it was just trying to battle. We were Eric Vance was one of our safeties at the time. Darrell Franklin was playing a little bit at playing some corner and safety. But Eric was the big dog at safety at the time, and he did a great job taking me under his wing and just teaching me the system as well. And I think the first game I had an opportunity to play in was down at South Carolina, and in terms of playing on defense, I played a lot of special teams, as a gunner and kickoff and all those things. I knew that was a way to get on the field, but as far as getting a lot of clock, it was the South Carolina game playing against Deuce Staley. And that was probably that stadium was just so fun and electric back then. They were really good. And I was able to fly around and make some plays and got beat on a couple of times. I remember getting on the phone with Coach Fuel and, missing some tackles when, trying to tackle Deuce Staley was a chore. He's
no joke. He was a stud.
When you're coming downhill and he's got you one-on-one, you better keep your head up. And he got me a couple of times, but I was able to get him down several times. But, that's one of my first games I remember, playing a ton in. And was able to get a couple of starts that redshirt freshman year throughout that season as well. So that was a lot of fun as well.
Well, Will Jacobs backs you up and said Rosie's a smart one. That was for sure.
Yeah, Rosie was awesome, man. Like I said, I didn't know anything that was going on defense in that first spring, and he helped me out. And then Eric Vance, of course, I just kind of shadowed him a ton as I was playing both free safety and strong safety, just the way our system set.
Well, when did you get really comfortable at the positions?
I would say probably when you get to – as you go through some experience and you win some battles and lose some battles as a safety in terms of coverage and tackles, probably near the end of that redshirt year, but more so going into the summer of my sophomore year. One thing I thought we did a great job was, the players were in charge of, we did our own 7-on-7. So we would hook up with TSU players and do 7-on-7 a ton in the summer. Man, that was some of the greatest battles because at that time they were really good at TSU, especially the skill players that they had and the quarterback that they had some transfer guys that played at major D1 programs that came over. And we had some great battles with TSU guys and in the summertime. But going into that summer, I was probably in the best shape I was ever in that year. I understood the defense, and now I can just react and just play fast. I mean, we played in a great system under Coach Woody Widenhofer and Norman Parker, and where it was aggressive and in your face. But going into that my redshirt sophomore year, I felt really comfortable at what I was doing and making plays.
Instead of having to think about what was going on, now you're able to just react because you've been there and you've got that muscle memory and recognition. And were you able to play in the defensive backfield with the same group for periods of time? So you kind of knew each other's rhythms and what to expect. Was it
Yeah,
getting to that point?
yeah, and that was the great thing about it. Like I said, the summertime, I thought we really were able to gel in the back row in terms of communicating and understanding. And at the time, our DB coach Perry Few, who is one of the best in the business and has been a coordinator, has won a Super Bowl and all these things in the NFL. He did a good job teaching us as a secondary group about learning how to watch film and to study the game and guys like Eric Vance and Corey Chavez and Jarrell Finkel and they would take that group and we would just constantly get better understanding those things, especially that sophomore year and definitely going into my junior year.
Well, Roc, I'm going to put you on the spot for just a minute before some of these guys who are watching us make a comment or two meant to call you out. I'm going to let you call yourself out, and I want you to tell a story before they can tell it or ask me to ask you. I need you to tell us a story that's going to give us a big chuckle or a nice laugh about it. Not meant to embarrass you, but just something that's a good that y'all tell, and it gets every time y'all see each other once a year, whatever it is for a ball game, that story keeps getting told, and who knows if it's actually the truth anymore.
Mm-hmm.
But you know the story. I'm sure you're thinking of something you got to share with us.
Yeah, and this has nothing to do with me, but I think it's about the moment, especially because I had it's the I think it's the '97 season. We're playing LSU, and we're playing at home, and which was a battle if everybody remembers that game. We were in the game, had a chance to win it, did not win that game. I think it's '97 season. Playing them at home. It's against Coach DiNardo, who, as I already alluded to early, it was no love there. From me personally, as a player, we were all angry. A lot of players were angry, and he was coming to our stadium, and our defense was really good. Offense was starting to get better. Hopefully they don't knock me for that one, but their defense was really good, and we were getting after them pretty good. And they had another back. They had Kevin Falk was the guy. He was special. But they had another guy at the time, Cecil Collins. I don't know if everybody remember him, who was just as special, a bigger back. And I just remember this play. He bounced it outside and was going toward the sideline. And Jamie Duncan and Carlton Hall, I think it was all three, Jamie, AJ, and Carlton. They roll him up and break his leg. It was a gruesome hit, and it was ugly. Kevin Falk gets back in the game. They take him off. It was a bad deal, but a clean hit. It was legal. Kevin Falk gets in the game, back in the game. Makes a run. I make a tackle on him. Get up. We're talking trash. He makes another run, a big run. And Jamie makes I think it was Jamie or Carlton, make a big tackle on him, and we knock him out of bounds, and he stays on his feet. And I remember him pulling up his jersey and waving his finger at it, and he had a T-shirt of Superman underneath, basically saying, "I'm unstoppable."
Yeah.
It was one of those moments you went, "Wow,"
Yeah.
And we've had a lot of those, but with some players we played against, but. I just remember that us taking a guy out thinking, all right, we're about to really get it.
Yeah.
And their best guy comes back in the game and does, some more special things. But that was a heck of a game.
In y'all's defense, he did go on to have a pretty decent NFL career after that. But I knew this was coming, Roc. I'm going to let you tell me who's asking this without you looking. Ask Roc why C. Hall led the SEC in tackles that year.
Because C. Hall did nothing but blitz. He never listened to any calls. I think C. Hall just blitzed 90% of the time just to make tackles. And
didn't matter the defensive call.
Didn't matter the call. He was going. And probably about 80% he was right. That's the crazy thing about it. So I guess I attribute to his film study. But C. Hall loved to blitz, even when he's not supposed to blitz. But
I suspect this year when he's the defensive coordinator at his new school, there's going to be a lot of blitzing on that
oh,
defense.
he's gonna let it loose now. He's bringing 8-man pressures. He may bring the whole house, but that's just how he played, man. And it was fun to play behind him because it was a race to get to tackles between. I mean, I'm a safety and I got Carlton and Jamie Duncan in front of me and Glenn and stuff. I mean, I got guys in front of me who can play, and it was fun. It was fun. But Carlton loved the blitz now.
Well, talk to me. Let's go off the field.
All right.
You live at Carmichael for a couple of years?
I lived in Vandy Barnard in a single by myself the first year. And then the second year I moved to Towers, Towers 2, and on the 10th floor. And I had a crew on my floor.
Nice.
I don't understand why they allowed us all to be on the same floor. We had a lot going on the 10th floor.
Let me guess. When it was a football weekend on a Saturday night, somebody had a system set up in the corner room. And
Yes.
That went on for decades, those kind of parties, I can assure you.
Yes.
But Towers, rest in peace. I don't know how many of them are down now, but at least one, maybe two. They may all be down before.
I think 2 of them are down there. I think they're getting ready for the last 2.
When I was there back in earlier this year, I saw them working on one of the towers coming down. But that's so funny. I lived in Towers for 3 years. And I can't say I loved every minute of it, but it was fun nonetheless. We made our own fun.
Towers 2 sophomore year was a lot of fun. It was we probably had way too much fun. That was probably it though. But I had a crew on my floor. It was a good.
Yeah, Johnny says, "Don't ask the walls what they have seen."
No, do not.
All right, Rock. Let's do rapid fire. I want you to tell me who's the best player you ever played against.
Fred Taylor. Fred Taylor was he was special. He was different. Kevin Falk was different, but Fred Taylor, man, just power and speed and elusiveness and vision. He was hard to bring down and just a great football player.
You play him in the swamp or at home or both?
Played them both. And argue, I know Danny Warfield was probably right behind him because we brought every pressure we can bring, and that guy made checks and made throws in that 96 game, the year they won the national championship. Yeah. We brought a lot of pressure at him. And
they had a special team that year, that's for sure.
They were great. I mean, and then you think about all the guys that had in the slot: Ike Hilliard and Jaquez Green and Rydell Anthony, and I mean Dorian. I mean, it was
all Sunday players. All
yes,
of them.
Yes, a lot of Sunday players on that team.
Tyler said, "I asked you for the best, not the ugliest." Now, come on now. All right, let's talk about next question. Where's your favorite place to play away from campus? Best stadium environment?
Probably. Gosh, that's a tough one. I would say, in a bad way, LSU, but I would say there or the Swamp. The Swamp was fun. It was fun to play there. Just the atmosphere. LSU was fun because the fans hated us, and probably most fun is when we went there that year. We took a butt whooping, I will say, but that's the year we were the first team in forever not to let them wear their white jerseys at home. Mm-hmm. And I remember going out for pregame, and they, of course, their fans were upset, and everybody, and first time in whatever years, but the atmosphere was just so amazing. The tire, it was right outside your locker and all that. We go out in pregame, and Corey Chavis goes to their student section, who's there early, with a white T-shirt, ringing it around. It's typical Corey Chavis now, and getting the fans riled up. So they come out in their dark, and then they go in right before the start of the game and change to their all gold. And we took one on the chin, but I tell you what, the atmosphere was unbelievable that night.
Who was toughest player to go against in practice on campus?
Guy named Royce Love. Royce Love played fullback, and especially when I was at safety, you got to think our offense was it wasn't spread, it was pro spread. And so you're talking about a lot of power plays where Royce is running the ball at you or blocking at you. Royce played physical every day. Royce got a big water head that's so, his helmet was so big. I mean, gosh. And you talking about taking him on a power play as you're coming down as a safety. It was a lot of banging there. But Royce Love, and probably the second behind him was the other fullback, Paul Morgan, and it was the same way. I mean, they were very similar. And Paul was tough. Paul was tough and hard nosed.
Favorite place on campus or off campus to get a bite to eat?
Oh gosh, I was Munchie Mart. I was I not have any money, so I had to use my card a ton. So I used to go downstairs to the Munchie Mart Towers and go to the Dairy Queen, the pizza places, because I didn't really have I didn't have much money back in those days at all. So anything I could use on my card to eat was critical for me.
Favorite class or professor?
Oh gosh. I'll go. One of my favorite professors was Sharon Shields, Dr. Shields, and so she did a couple classes, service class, but she was probably one of my favorites, just because she had a great relationship with all her students. I stayed in touch with her for a long time. She just was a good mentor for me and advising me as I went along my collegiate career. And Vera Chapman is another one. Who became my advisor when I started my master's program there. So those two are my favorites.
Well, good deal. I want to welcome, let's see, Joe Staley just joined us. Erica Taylor has joined us. So thank you, guys. I've got Roc Batten, one of the hardest hitters in that 96, 97 time period. I think Mr. Hall and a few others may chime in that they may have hit a little bit harder, but my money's on Mr. Batten, at least for tonight. All right. So when is it that you, and this may be a little bit of a tough question, because we've all been through this as athletes on campus. It's different at Vanderbilt. You don't get treated like you're some better than others on campus. And a lot of professors didn't care for any athletes. They didn't care who you were. You missed class because you were out of town or whatever. It didn't matter. Yeah. If you got one of those events, one of those times in your life, maybe you walked in late or you had a tough a tough conversation. You don't have to mention names, but did you ever have one of those events, either where you were called out because you were an athlete or you had some situation come up that really, it just showed again, you're at an academic institution that took their studies seriously, and maybe the professors didn't really care that much?
Yeah, it was, I think it was my freshman year. I won't name the class, but it was a class on Peabody campus. And me and a couple guys kind of rolled in late, and all of us didn't play football. But the teacher assumed we all did, actually. It was, two football players, two regular students, but we were all friends. And it was that moment where we were all kind of guilty about, it was one of those, hey, you football guys can't be, coming here late. It was kind of that kind of scolding a little bit. And we were late on this day, coming from breakfast and getting over there. But everybody in that group weren't football players. And so it was kind of one of those moments kind of where you go, okay, this is, it's this kind of, you've been classifying a group. And, actually I was a pretty decent student. So I was like, all right, I got to make sure I keep myself on the ball and separate myself at times when I need to. But it was just kind of that eye-open moment for me, and I'm glad it happened early. Yeah. And as a young kid trying to find my way. But that's when like I said, I was able to build some relationship with a couple professors like Sharon Shields and Vera Chapman and Doc Martin and those guys who gave us advice about navigating all these things. But also having a great, athletic advisor with Derek Gregg, who went through the process. And he was working in the athletic department. And as much as he was on us about, making sure you had study hall on time, all these things, I thought he was a great tool for us because he had already walked in the shoes that we were walking. Yeah. And now on the other side of it and can give us advice and really good advice. And so, you didn't want him to knock at your door looking for you for early study hall. So
I can assure you, Roc, you didn't want him in the huddle yelling at you because you underthrew him and he had to come back for a ball to fight with some of those DBs. I had those conversations and those weren't fun either, my friend.
I bet. No, but he was a great tool, man. Um, in terms of just enforcing some of those things and for us as a player.
But having those mentors, having those guys ahead of you, whether they were former players or just professors or whoever they were, who were in that place to be able to help out was really a lot of help for all of us. But I will tell you, there were certain classes I took where I didn't wear anything issued by the athletics department. I just
Yeah,
wore regular clothes, just tried to fit in with a lot. It didn't sit with my teammates because it just
yep.
didn't want to have any of that. I think we can all relate to that. We got some comments here I want to throw to you. Kenneth Christian said, "Run in the stands for missing class." And Ant says that you caused him to run stadiums for missing class.
I'm, hey, I had my own stadium run. My freshman year. This is one of those stories. My freshman year,
Uh-huh.
you if you played for DiNardo, you knew there was a thing called DiNardo's time. So first day of camp, he set his watch. Well, you set your watch to his watch because his time was the only time that mattered. And I remember this is middle season. I'm already in the doghouse, and I go back to my room after class, and just I fall asleep. I doze off in Vandy Barnard, and in a single by myself. And I remember waking up, and the meeting is gonna start in 2 minutes. The team meeting, like so I am hustling. There's no way I'm gonna make it from Vandy Barnard all the way to McGugan Center into the meeting in my seat. Like when you're late, you're late. Like when the time stops, he closes the door and locks it.
Yeah.
So if the coach is late, they're late. And I remember riding my bike, and I'm busting it. And I mean, I was so terrified of him as a freshman. I remember thinking to myself, I'd rather just get hit by a car than just than be late for this meeting. I remember those thoughts going through my head. I need to fall down or something. Obviously, I get to the meeting, can't get in. John Shoup is outside, and he just, sit down, just sit here, Rock, just sit outside. And I remember DiNardo walking out of that meeting, looked me in the face, did not say one word to me, walked up to his office. Everybody comes out of the meeting. No one said it. So I'm just fearful. I'm like, what's going to happen to me? And John Shoup sees me at the end of practice, say, hey, man, you have 5 a.m. stadium runs for the next 2 weeks. I'm going, 5 a.m. stadium runs? He said, Rock, please don't be late. Just don't be late. And he said it to me just like that. And I remember the first 5 a.m., I get to the stadium probably about 4:45. DiNardo is sitting in the stands reading the paper. He's looked like he's been there for an hour. He is sitting in the stands. So he met me there early for the first 3 or 4 days, and he didn't say anything. He just made sure I was there. But Shoup had to run me. So yeah, I had my own. I dealt with my own issues of doing those 5 a.m. runs. So I can't get it. No one can say I made them part of it. I had my own issues.
Well, we've all been there, my friend, at one point or another. We've all been there. Well,
Yeah,
let's take it to your final season. I know that you got injured,
yeah,
that you ultimately didn't play your senior year, if I'm correct.
right.
It must have been a serious enough injury for you to really have to make that decision. But
Yeah,
it ultimately transitioned you, at least the way I see it, into a coaching role
right.
eventually. So
Yeah,
kind of talk about that time period.
yeah. That was a tough time. I mean, it was a spring game my senior year. Corey, all those guys had graduated and moved on. Fred Vinson was coming back, and Ainsley Battles, and felt like we still were gonna have a pretty good defense. And Fonzo Harvey and Ryan Auld. It was still a good group of guys left. And Jamie Winmore was about to be one of the new, and Jimmy Williams. They were about to be kind of that new
Mhm.
group of guys, kind of stepping in. But spring game, I get injured, making a tackle, tore 3 nerves in my neck, connected to my spinal cord, ended my career, had paralysis in my left arm. And, I always tell people it was a blessing in disguise because that injury, as unfortunate as it was, really catapulted me into something that I love and I can't imagine not doing, which is coaching. It was Norm Parker and Eric Johnson were 2 of the guys. They were coaches on the staff. when I was injured, went back home, was about to have a big surgery at the Mayo Clinic in Minnesota, because it was a pretty intense injury. Talked to me about being being a student coach and eventually being a grad assistant, taking over for Eric Johnson, who was going to be leaving after that next year. And at the time, I'm going, I don't think this is it's like, be a student coach this year and just see if you love it. And I remember working under Dino Foligno and Norm Parker, and I loved every bit of it. And Dino let me coach as a student coach that year, my senior year, coaching the secondary, and at times taking the safeties. And it was a tough experience, but it is something I will never forget, because it gave me an opportunity of coaching and something I love right now, and that's my career, and I love doing it. So,
Rock, isn't it just wild how life just throws you curveballs, and frankly, and we're going to get to where you are right now, but my friend, from what I know of you and learning more and more, you hit it out of the park, because you took an opportunity that really, I'm sure those first few months you were not in the right headspace to know that ultimately where it was going to lead you. But right. You took that opportunity, you coached your senior year, and you've now been a head coach for how many years in the high school level?
This will be my 9th year as a head coach. I just finished my 9th year, so next year will be my 10th year as a head coach.
So your first head coaching, was that at BGA?
Yes, BGA. Yeah, at BGA. I was the head coach there for 8 years.
And one of my buddies taught and coached there for many years, and I think he's still on with us, O.J. Fleming, one of your teammates.
Yes.
And ultimately you transitioned over to Ensworth. So talk a little bit about those first couple of years. I know you were an assistant coach for a while, learning the ranks, learning how all this goes. And you weren't that much older than some of the kids you were coaching at.
No, that was an interesting transition, because I went from a student coach to a grad assistant coach, and it was all the guys I hung out with, and that was the hardest part, making sure I separate myself.
Hold on, let me pause that. How were you big dogging at this point and throwing that GA? Hey, I'm the GA around here. You're still on the team.
No, I was not, because I was still, when you're a GA, even though you're a grad assistant coach, especially back then, it was grunt work. You still feel like you're the low man on the totem pole. I went to get many ham sandwiches at Ham and Goody for Woody Widenhofer. Trust me.
Oh,
many ham sandwiches and going to cleaners. But no, that was the hard part, just separating myself from the guys that I hung out with, 4 months ago. And going, all right, now I'm not a student coach. Now I just moved to GA. I really have to separate myself. And that's what some of my mentors talked to me about. Like, man, you really have to separate yourself from the players, which I did, and which was tough sometimes,
Was Dr. Gregg, was Derek still on the staff at that?
He was not. He was gone at that time. D. Gregg went to, I think he was at Michigan. No, he's at Arkansas, I think, at that time.
Yeah, I know part of his stop, he was at Eastern Michigan for a while, Arkansas.
Yeah.
I don't remember the order, but now he's obviously at Tulsa. He's the AD at Tulsa. But go back to that time period. You're now the GA for that time period, and you're learning how to really coach the positions, or coach where you had been a player for so many wonderful seasons. So go ahead.
Yeah, I was a grad assistant and working with the defensive backs and working under Dino Foligno. Of course, Woody was the head coach at the time, and just learning how to be a coach and learning how to really break down film and break down offensive teams and personnel groups and all these things that was so vital for me. Learning how to draw cards as drawing up offenses and how we're going to stop them. And it was so fascinating to me in terms of the chess game. And I felt like between Norm Parker and Woody, I'm learning from the best in the country in terms of being a defensive coach, and Dino Foligno. These guys were great coaches and worked under other great people. Dino's working out of George Perlis and a lot of other guys, and Woody, of course, has worked with Saban and Belichick and been in all these different conferences. So I was trying to be a sponge, just absorb and learn as much as I can, but also try to bring my playing experience as I'm teaching it to the players that I'm coaching. I think some guys can play the game at a high level, but not everybody can teach it. and I try to be able to learn it and I can teach it and put it on in their terms so they can play at a high level and just do what I thought I was able to do at a certain point when I was able to get it, just to react, not to overthink it.
Well, that you came from it naturally. What
Yeah.
your parents do for a living.
Right. Yes.
You can't, no, I'm serious because
Yeah.
if you really think about this, the position you played was a cerebral position.
Yeah.
You come from a family of coaching. It's just part of your DNA.
Yeah.
Now, I want you to share that experience with us when that competitive fire and that competitiveness in you as a coach
Mm.
translated to you seeing some of your players succeed on the field.
Yeah.
I know you remember that moment and that time period.
That is still to this day, but even when I go back to them for guys who I played with and seeing that translate to success on the field, that is, I mean, it's an unbelievable feeling as a coach when you see them have success doing the things you worked on all week, and you see them get it, and you see them put the time in at film study. I mean, I played with Ainsley Battles, but seeing Ainsley put the things that we worked on into action and make plays, and it was so exciting. And of course now it's still the same way as a coach.
Rock, I want to take you back to my time when we wore, leather helmets. But anyway, and I don't know if Coach Shepard is still on or if he'll remember this. I played on the scout team my senior year. We're getting ready for the UT week. Billy Cunningham, one of the best athletes, country guy, could just knock you out.
Mm-hmm.
Was probably playing your position or maybe an outside safety. Jeff Francis was Tennessee's quarterback, and we knew when they were going to run a certain type of a short swing pass, type of a little flare. We worked on it all week. They ran it in the game. Cunningham jumped it and took it for 6. And I don't know if Coach Shepard, if he's on, I hope he is, but just me being on the scout team and seeing that play unfold and seeing Cunningham do that, I mean, that's the kind of thing that just lights you up. Now, Granted, we lost a 28-3 lead at halftime, lost 38-36 in Knoxville. That was the end result. But for one play, I saw it right there. But we got so many guys rolling through here. I got to say hey to them. Tom Gray, one of my teammates. Daryl Griffin.
There, yeah.
My buddy Mitch out in California. Dwayne Jones, who was equipment man extraordinaire during all of our time period. George White. There's so many guys rolling through here and some great comments. I can't get to all of them. But, Rock, I want to go back to your that time when you're coaching and some of that competitiveness comes out and you see your players are succeeding. And this is tough because now you're a father. Now you've got 3 up-and-coming athletes. You've also got how many athletes on your football program?
Right.
My question is, do you get more joy seeing their successes as opposed to when you were playing back in the day? It's a different kind of feeling to me.
No, you're absolutely right. Seeing the players I coach, their successes and opportunities from the kids that get opportunities, not just going on to college, which I've been fortunate to coach several kids who've gone on to college and some who play on Sunday, but seeing their individual successes, even them grow and mature and make plays, but also do things in the classroom. Of course, seeing my kids do things, my son and my 2 daughters, seeing them do things on the different surfaces and fields that they play sports in, they love every bit of it. It's a different joy, It's a different joy when you see it for kids you coach or your own kids. It's just different, and it's special, and that's why I do it. I mean, my kids, I love my kids. That's a whole different. But the kids I coach, I coach football, and I figured this out early because I love kids, and it is definitely in me. Coaching is in me. It's part of my blood and my history. And I remember I was a freshman. A guy named Darwishi Miles told me, it was like freshman year. He said, "Man, you're going to be a coach." And I go, "You're out of your mind." And he goes, "Well, no, man, you're going to be a coach." And I don't know why he told me that. He just said, "I just see how you think and how you're going to be a coach." And eventually I go back to being a coach, and I love every bit of it. But I love coaching kids. I love mentor kids, and I love helping them along their journey. One of my great inspirations was my high school coach, George Sahady, who passed away several years ago, and he was a great inspiration for me. And he helped a lot of kids follow their dreams in college. And so I love that. Going back to one thing you were saying, I will say this: you're talking about when you were on scout team. There's two moments that I remember as a player, and both of them happen to be with Corey Chavis. We're playing in between the hedges against Georgia, and we're blitzing them, and we're playing what we call in and out, where we got two receivers. If the receiver goes in, I get them. If the receiver goes out, and they had a tendency, they ran a slant and a quick out. And Corey and I called the in and out, and we knew what was coming on it was a 3rd and 3, and they tried to throw the out route to Hines Ward, and Corey hits him and separates him from the ball. And I think Corey sprinted so far down to the other end, he should have been penalized. And so that was a moment. And then another one in the swamp against Noah Brundice. They were on a 3rd and 8, and they always ran what we call a post dig and combination. And we told each other it was coming. I said, well, I'm going to jump it. You get me on the post. And I jumped that thing because we knew it was coming, and I picked it off, and it was a big play for us down there. So those are the moments, like you're saying, where you see something, you've been doing it, and it happens in the game, like you say, and those are so exciting.
Well, is it true that a little while ago, before he joined us, you said that Royce Love had the largest helmet of any player you had ever played against?
No question. He was up there.
He's on with us right now. So hey, Royce.
He took me. That's like my big brother, man. Yeah, But he was full tilt downhill. You run a power play, and Royce has to come kick you out. You better get low and get ready to absorb something, because he is coming full force.
And one of my teammates, probably the best known man in the state of Louisiana these days, Will Pryor, is with us. So Will, thanks for joining in for a few minutes. Guys, we're getting close to the end of our discussion. I could talk with Roc for hours, and this has been great. I hope that we've hit on some good subjects for you tonight, Roc.
Yeah, no, this has been awesome. I appreciate this, just reminiscing, like I said, and then like hearing some of these guys who are logged in. Man, I had a lot of great fun with a lot of these guys. A lot of them I consider, not just teammates, but great friends and for life. And always look forward to seeing them at a Vandy game or homecoming or something like that. But this has been great for me as I'm just reflecting on my Vandy experience and all the great things about it.
Well, it's been big fun for me too. But before we get out of here, I want to come present. I want you to tell the folks about your position at Ensworth, and for folks who don't know or hadn't caught up with you for a while, you're the head coach there, the football program, but there's much more than that.
Yeah.
I know you're proud. You've got 3 kids at home. You've got a Vanderbilt bride as well. Yeah. So tell us a little bit more about yourself personally. What's going on these days?
Yeah, so I'm married. My wife was a Vandy grad, and we have 3 kids. Aaliyah is 14, a freshman at Ensworth, and Isaiah, 12, and my youngest daughter, Michaela. So 3 kids who are diehard Vandy fans through and through, and which is really fun. I'm the head coach currently at Ensworth High School. I was at Ensworth the first 7 years the high school opened, and left to take I was a coordinator there, left to take my first head coaching job after being at Vanderbilt as a coach and my coaching experience there, but left to BGA to be a head coach for 8 years, and I had an amazing experience there with a lot of great people at BGA and that time, and had an opportunity to come back this year to Ensworth to take over the program. I was on the staff. We won our first state championship in 2010, and so got a lot of great kids at Ensworth, and it's a great program. We play basically in the SEC of high school football in the state of Tennessee. It's an amazing school, not only just athletically, but also academically, arts. It's just an amazing place. I'm also the associate director of admissions at the school as well. So this year our team had a good run in our first season, made it to the semifinals, lost to the eventual state champions, and got a good group coming back. Had a kid just commit recently over spring break to Ohio State. We just had this past year, we had 6 kids sign, 4 of them going to Division I schools. And so it's a great place with great kids, and we're just trying to build it up. I got a great group of coaches and men who work with me who understand they believe in the same philosophy that I have as a coach in terms of mentoring kids, not just on the field, but off the field, and affecting their lives beyond just the football field. And it's a great great group. So, but a lot of that I learned from my time at Vanderbilt as a player and as a coach, and breathe that into my program and helping our young men that we have there.
Well, Rock, that's what it's all about, my friend. It's giving back. It's paying forward. You clearly have got a lot of buddies who you played ball with back in the day, and so many great comments and things. But I want to thank you for sharing some of your history and some of your present with me and with some of these folks who are watching us. And I wish you the very best.
Thank you so much, Bernard. I really want to thank you, man. I think what you're doing is amazing. This is awesome. Like I said before, you're bringing a lot of the Vandy guys back together, allow us to reminisce and tell some great stories, but also just connect with each other. And so, I just want to say thank you to you, and I just appreciate what you're doing because, Vandy was some of the best years of my life. And, like I said, I've been able to meet my beautiful bride there as well.
Labor of love here, my friend. I can assure you of that. But I want to encourage you guys, if you've got teammates, cheerleader friends, anybody who's affiliated with the program, we're keeping it within our family. We haven't opened it up yet to fans and so forth, but a lot of people are knocking on that door. But for now, we're keeping it within the Commodore family, so to speak. But if you've got photos from back in the day, old jerseys you still have, your helmet, videos from games or practices, throw it into our group. I love seeing all that stuff. And from the responses, it seems like everybody does as well. But guys, next week I got a treat as well. I got Jim Arnold, All-America punter, All-Pro punter. He's going to join me next week right here on Conversations with Commodores. You guys have a great time. Be safe, be smart, just do the right thing for you and your family, and we'll catch you guys next week.
All right. Thank you.